welcome everybody on the second data plane working group meetup. Jean-Fei is gonna talk today about the MTLS simplification that he's been doing. We also just got 1.4 branch, but that doesn't include proxy yet, because proxy is gonna be cut from stable Envoy release, and I can talk about justification for that in a minute. Hey, Jean-Fei.
Yeah, sorry, I was just realized this agenda a couple minutes ago, so I haven't prepared anything. Yeah, well, how do you want me to report status, or how it works, or?
Just status update.
Okay, yeah. So we have both Envoy implementation done and merged to the master that will be in 1.12 Envoy release, and we also get that updated in Istio dependency, proxy, WASM, so on and so forth. And Greg helped us to get the pilot change down. And so right now it's merged in master branch, and we have a cherry pick PR in 1.4 branch to get that into that release branch as well. And DM actually just played with the feature a couple minutes ago. Do you want to say something about your thoughts?
No, I mean, well, the good news is work. The bad news is I think we need to write a clear user guide how user to migrate from the current state into this auto MTLS. Look like you have to restart everything or I redeploy everything. I try to find out which component is necessary or not. But the first try, I just flip the flag doesn't work. I have to restart almost everything, including the workloads, Istio control plane. So it could be a bad experience.
You know why it was missing on the pilot side, or?
Not exactly. I want to find out. I try to find out. I think there's some dependency on policy as well, Mixer. I don't know what's like exactly changed here, so Greg can help me out. But look like there's some condition on the Mixer. That's why the connection actually make it between the client and server. But then when the server do the policy check, it's failed. So the error message also misleading because when they say file 3, but it actually file 3 within the server and Mixer and policy.
Yeah, because I think we make that ham flag to add the MTS label ready label to Mixer workload as well. That's a prerequisite, and we introduced that in 1.4. And hopefully, when customers upgrade to 1.4, they have Mixer and has that label added. And I thought, Greg, can you confirm that even the flag is disabled, we always add the label to workloads in 1.4?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And for workloads, you mean the sidecars and Mixer, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, it's always added.
Okay, yeah, good. So then that can give us easier life of doing.
So I guess we just need to try all the different cases. The clean setup is working, that's good. I think that's okay, but like for all the upgrade, it's having so many different scenarios how we want user to have to restart what exactly.
Sure. Yeah, that's it. I'm updating the design doc since we make a lot of changes from the original design, and that needs to be kept in sync.
And also, just a heads up, there was a manual cherry pick PR release branch as of late last night / this morning.
Yeah. It is or it isn't?
It is.
Okay. So it sounds like it's gonna ship in 1.4, and is it gonna be enabled by default or no?
No, not enabled by default. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the testing, right? If we test it and we find that we fix all the issues, then we can just keep it enabled by default. Because
right, yeah, that's generally the strategy with most features, right?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like we've made sure that if destination rules are in place, then this will not kick in. So this will, even if we enable by default, only a very small portion of users will probably see the thing, because they don't have any destination rules. So it's,
Right, but what I'm worried about the upgrade part, like the user from 1.3, if they how they upgrade this in opt into that feature right away, because they have to restart all the workloads, right?
no,
Right, so
no,
that's
the
a
user from
requirement to enable
1.3
the
will
feature,
not
right?
be there.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
so that's a requirement to enable the feature, but that doesn't mean that the feature can't be on by default, right? You have to restart the workloads to get the label set up. Correct? Right? Pod injection?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think the other thing is that if 1.3 proxies will continue to do what they are doing today, which is if they have destination rule based MTLS, then it will just continue to work. And 1.4 proxies will be the ones that will have these labels. And the whole auto MTLS will kick in only when we fully remove the destination rules. And so it's like, we can keep the destination rule around for one more release and then remove it by next one or in a point release for that matter.
So what's the recommendation, just to confirm?
So, I mean, on by default, we obviously, we'll have a mixture of 1.3 and 1.4 proxies. The 1.3 proxies can't be served config they can't use, right? So pilot's behavior needs to vary based on node metadata passed.
Yeah, that
Right.
we have. I think, Greg, we do have the check, right? The node metadata check. If not, we should add it. I think it was there in the cluster.go. But yes, that we have. But I think this is a question in terms of like, if what happens on the other consumer side, and or like when we send the data to 1.3 proxies, we will continue to use the same logic that was there in 1.3, which is if the destination rules were there, then we would just program MTLS according to the destination rules.
Right, that's my understanding. Right, so that means the feature is on, but it gets more used.
Yep.
But we have to do the testing, right? That's
Yes,
the point.
yes. That's why it's just off for now, and until the tests are done, then we can enable it.
We are suggesting if we have enough testing, we can enable it on even for 1.4?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I thought we are gonna wait for one more release.
No, I mean, what would be the point of doing that?
Yeah, you will still have the same issue in 1.5, right? Because it's like you would suddenly end up enabling it for everybody out of the blue, and makes no difference, right?
Sure, it just will buy us more time for understanding debugging the feature. Yeah, but we can see how far we go with the integration test. And
We have to wait for testing, right? Well, properly.
Right, but that's why we have 1 month lead time, right? Remember, the release is November 15th, right? So we have plenty of time. It's not happening tomorrow.
3 weeks.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but we still have time to fix like spot regressions and all the other things.
Okay.
Right, and that was the same approach we took with in the 1.3 release with split listener, right? And we were going to take that approach with protocol sniffing, but
we do have it, and we do have it partially, and I have a topic to discuss on that now.
Yeah, and that was the approach with protocol sniffing until we found an issue that we couldn't work around, and then we turned it off by default.
I see. Okay. Sure. Then that's
So actually, should we turn it on now in 1.4 so everyone can, whoever testing
Yes,
can
actually, that's generally what we did.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So we have more exposure during the community testing for the bugs that can.
Yes, that's exactly what we should do.
Interesting. Okay.
Sounds good.
We need to make another PR. All right. Thanks.
So this gives a good segue. Piotr, do you have anything else on the agenda?
No, I can talk about switch to stable Envoy releases if people are interested. If not, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I have something else. So I don't know if Jan is actually around or if he's on the call. He's on the call.
I pinged him earlier, but
okay. So I think what we have is we have a sort of a serious issue with the whole ALPN stuff, because for protocol sniffing to work on the inbound path, we need to encode ALPNs like on the client side, the Istio-HTTP1, Istio-HTTP2, and so on and so forth. But if we do that, then the problem is that during upgrades, 1.4 proxy talking to 1.3 proxy, that communication would break because the 1.3 proxy would not have those ALPNs encoded. So the 1.3 proxies will will punt. And in a similar way, it's like there's a whole matrix of issues, like in 1.4 proxy with 1.4 config talking to 1.3 proxy with 1.4 config, or a 1.3 proxy with a 1.3 config, and vice versa. The bottom line in this entire picture is that the ALPNs that we are sending from the client side, I don't think we can have this model where it's just like, one single ALPN like Istio HTTP1 or Istio HTTP2 or whatnot. We have to send all of them together. I mean, like Istio, the old ALPN and the newer ones that we are actually sending on the client side from the ALPN filter. And on the server side, we need to have a different form of ALPN match. Today, the ALPN, the match in Envoy is like if any one of these protocols match, it would just like, pick that filter chain. But instead, what we need to have is something more different, wherein we should probably, it should be something like match all of these ALPNs, only then this filter chain will be selected.
Yes, so two things to comment. One is we can definitely, add them on the client side, so we are future-proof in, future releases instead of requiring all the changes to happen in single release, right? Because then we have this log set that all the proxies won't work with this feature. So we should definitely at least configure APN now.
On the client side, I mean, use the old ALPN and the newer ones on the client side. That would maintain compatibility. But on the inbound path, in order for sniffing to be enabled properly, the proxy, that 1.4 proxy, will get both the old and the new ALPNs in the same connection, right? And when it sees both old and new, the proxy needs to basically still pick the newer ALPN and activate the HTTP filter chain, and not fall back to like, oh, I see the old ALPN called Istio, let me just fall back to the plain TCP proxy filter chain.
But why do we need the new ALPN?
So because on the client side or on the server side?
Well, in general, right? We previously we were sending and matching on both Istio and H2 or HTTP 1.1.
Right, but
and you can send multiple.
Right, and but then the whole problem came about because of sniffing, right? Where on the sniffing path we were just not sending. So there are other combinations, right? Like Istio represented only MTLS, and H2 was like plain text H2. I don't think it was. We had a plain text. I mean, HTTP over MTLS.
ALPN is always over TLS, right? It's TLS exclusive.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah.
Yes, it's a TLS extension.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, well, that makes it. The problem is that if traffic is coming from an outbound listener that is doing protocol sniffing, and it detects that this is a H2 protocol, then that information has to be passed through on the outbound path. That is where we wrote this ALPN filter that basically looked at the sniffed protocol and attached the appropriate ALPN on the outbound path, wherein it said that this is a Istio and this is a H2 connection, or Istio and HTTP1 connection, or Istio and a HTTP 1.0 connection, or whatever it is. So this was the ALPN that the client basically is adding. This was a new addition in 1.4. But on the server side, when you're doing protocol sniffing, right, because this is for the ports that are not named. So on the server side, when you're doing protocol sniffing, today by default, you'll only have a TCP proxy, or you will have HTTP connect. You would either have a TCP proxy or HTTP connection manager, depending on the sniffing thing, right? But since the traffic is coming over TLS, we have the ability to attach the ALPN on the client side itself, which is what Jan's filter was doing. And it basically specified that, this is a HTTP1 over MTLS, or this is a HTTP2 over MTLS, or whatnot. And then on the receiving side, this would actually look at the ALPN and then activate either the HTTP connection manager or the TCP proxy.
I'm still not convinced that we need new ALPN value for that.
But we don't have do we have one for HTTP1?
Yeah, it's called HTTP/1.1. So I'm not sure if we are actively sending it right now, but I'm not. I question the necessity of introducing completely new Istio specific values.
Yeah, that does seem a bit odd.
Okay, I'm trying to like page in as to why we created a completely new ALPN. That's why I wanted Jan to be in the meeting because
Yeah, he had some emergency and he couldn't join.
okay. Or
Okay.
so
Can
I'm trying
email
to
Streamer, maybe what we should do is
Oh,
there
I
a
know
user
why.
issue to
So
track?
I think the problem was this, right? Because if EVN that's coming in is just plain Istio, then the TCP proxy would always get selected, and we wanted the maximal ALPN set match, which meant that either there were two options in this case. One is we collapse this whole thing into like this ginormously large ALPN like Istio hyphen H2 blah, such that on the receiving side we can set up a proper filter chain match for this, or we change Envoy to actually like select the filter chain based on the maximal match in the ALPN set.
Yeah, but for that you can have two separate values. So you can send the Istio indicator and then H2 or H1 or
Right,
not.
but Piotr, I think the issue is that Envoy, when it selects a filter chain based on ALPN values, can only specify one value to match, not two.
Or it will pick the filter chain if any one of those values match. Not all of those values match. It just picks it. If even one of them matches, it will just pick it. So that's where the whole problem was, because the client would actually send, like if the client sends a plain text connection up, normal TCP thing. On the server side, we have like the MTLS thing where it will just look at like HTTP connection manager is matching on Istio as the ALPN, plus, or H2, and TCP connection manager would match on Istio as only Istio as ALPN. So do you see how the matching works? The matching is not like
Yeah, but that's like easy change in Envoy.
that's what I meant. So that's the if we do that change, then we would not need to invent a new ALPN. So like now I remember. Yeah, so I don't think we need to invent new ALPNs. We can retain the old ALPNs, but have the option of like matching everything, all the ALPNs in a set in Envoy in order to select the filter chain, and that way we would just things would just work seamlessly. And with that, we can enable sniffing completely on inbound and outbound.
So Piotr, is it possible to make that change in an Envoy build that we could take in a 1.4 release? Because it's also an API change.
Where we could add, use plus symbol, and instead of, still having it encoded in API as one value, just, Istio plus H2.
Yeah, I mean, like I realize there's a variety of ways of solving the problem.
No, but that's exactly what we're doing, guys. That's exactly what Jan did. So instead of making the API change in Envoy, he went and created this Istio hyphen HTTP one-on-one, and that's where this whole compatibility issue comes in.
Sure, I'm right. Is it changes the wire protocol, right? So that affects other systems.
Yeah, sure. What I was suggesting was change in the Envoy configuration for the filter chain match only. Like on the wire, it would be still two separate values.
Yes.
Right, on the wire, it will be two separate values, but on the filter chain match, we can just specify a simple Boolean that is off by default. And when turned on, it would just do an AND match on the ALPN set.
Yeah, so that's what Piotr was suggesting. We invent a syntax in the ALPN filter chain match, right, to have a composite string.
No. So what I'm trying to say is that if you invent our own syntax inside the ALPN match, then it breaks compatibility with older proxies that are talking to 1.4, or when 1.4 is talking to the newer older proxies, because
why would it break compatibility?
Because on the you mean I see. I see what you're saying. Okay, you will have Istio plus H2, but the client will still send Istio and H2 as two separate things.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
That'll be.
And I believe it's already doing that. At least we were supposed to do that.
No, we are sending. Yeah, the client is already sending Istio, H2. I think. So on the server side, is it that hard to make that API change in Envoy and then bring that into Istio proxy?
No, I don't think so. That should be, especially if we just do inline like matching combination instead of adding another field, then that should be.
No, that's what I meant. Like, is it hard to make that API change in Envoy to add a Boolean option to do an AND match instead of any match? Like, it's just a filter chain changes in Envoy, right? Like basically we have to specify that in the filter chain.
It doesn't seem hard to make that change. Sure.
Yeah, it's much easier in that way, right? Rather than us encoding something like a +1 and then 1.5 time frame, we'll once again have this whole, like, we have to do both, which is a painful thing.
Yeah. I can start doing the change and we'll see how upstream.
So, Peter, can you record an action item for yourself to follow up with Jan about this in the notes?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we definitely should not be inventing any more synthetic ALPN labels if we can avoid it.
Yeah, that's true. Now I remember. Yeah, even when in the comment that I made like 2 months ago for this thing on the summary of the issue, we had suggested this and semantics, and but then when I saw this like Istio -h2, I was like, okay, fine. As long as it works, it works. And then yesterday when we were like drawing the entire matrix, we realized this is gonna break in 10 different ways. So yeah, we still need the Envoy side change, the filter chain.
Yeah, I will work on that.
Okay, so I guess we need to put this back on the schedule and follow up with Jan and open a tracking issue in Envoy to make this fix.
Yeah, yes.
I think the question is, can we get this in a timely fashion for 1.4? Otherwise, we need to know what else to do in terms of the.
I think we have to prioritize this. We already slipped protocol sniffing one release, so
yes, it's only like half enabled and it's just not proper. And yeah, it'd be nice to have this properly enabled and be done with it.
Okay.
Okay, I will take action on that. Do we have anything else anybody wants to discuss?
Nope.
Okay. I'm just gonna mention this. I didn't open proper issue for tracking this yet, but intend to switch to upstream Envoy releases in upcoming Istio proxy and keep it going forward because we keep too many, we spend too much time backporting fixes to our randomly selected commits instead of relying on upstream providing that. So Istio proxy 1.4 wasn't cut yet because we are waiting for Envoy to release 1.12 this next week, and eventually we are gonna just ship with vanilla Envoy releases from upstream with WebAssembly extensions.
But what happens when we add these kind of fixes like this ALPN?
Well, we can have cherry picks in our stable branch, right? But the point is that currently for each security release we do, we spend almost a week backporting them to 3 random branches instead of having stable releases for which Envoy provides patches already.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the goal. I mean, I think the real question here is timeline.
So
Yeah,
are you saying that from now, Envoy is going to have a timely-based release process as well?
No, well, they are still on 3 to 4 month schedule, right? For which we would need to kind of adjust, or at least we would have 2 releases based on same proxy with some cherry picks. But the point is, and one thing that we need to discuss with them is whether they can support 2 stable releases, because right now Envoy upstream only supports the latest stable release. So starting next week, they will only support 1.12, right? So we would need to donate some resources for backporting to stable releases if we want to do that. But then again, we are already doing that for 3 random releases. So it's net win for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a net win. I think we need a couple of things. No, obviously there's the default telemetry work with WebAssembly and performance assessment, right? Which we're close, I believe, to having a performance assessment delta.
Yeah, we have like a
Yeah, I saw that thing. It said it was 20% extra CPU, and Manda was like confused. It was 20% extra CPU with the mixerless telemetry compared to the one with the mixer. And there was he filed an issue this morning, so it was.
Yeah, so we're not going to resolve that in this meeting, but we need to know that. And it's not strictly about mixer versus mixerless. It's null sandbox versus WebAssembly. Actually, is the thing we hear about.
Yeah, and this is also like I'm talking still about the base of Envoy branch, right? WebAssembly or null sandbox is separate issue, right?
Okay.
Same general, idea, but with different steps, I guess.
Okay. So, I guess leaving our extensions aside, for which we have now fewer and fewer, what do we think is a reasonable timeline? I guess part of it is dependent on Envoy's release process.
Yeah, so Envoy is gonna ship 1.12 next week, and then we're gonna ship 1.4 based on that. And 1.5, either we stick to this release if they don't release anything newer, or we switch to 1.13. At which point I would like all of our custom extensions to use the WebAssembly API, whether it's null sandbox or no, like they would be still compiled as null sandbox, right? Because WebAssembly isn't GA. But then, like 2 releases from now, I would like us to switch to WebAssembly. Like all Envoy Istio extensions would be WebAssembly.
So other than the telemetry extensions, what other extensions right now do we have?
We have the metadata exchange, where that's also part of telemetry. And I think we have one RBAC.
Do we have RBAC?
Not a whole lot of things that we need to change. So
I thought the RBAC stuff was upstreamed.
Yeah, it was already there in native, right?
We still have it in.
No, but the RBAC thing that I don't think we have an RBAC. I think we have a JOT or something of that sort. No, even that was upstreamed.
No, we have authorization there, but maybe it's just leftover. I will verify those.
Yeah, I think right now, I don't think there are any committed extensions from within. We do have plan of testing out one, but since RBAC ABAC is already upstreamed, it's probably unlikely that we are going to use exactly same thing re-implemented in WASM. Maybe we'll do it for a performance study.
Correct. Yeah, we have like few like SNI, forward downstream SNI and SNI verifier, which are custom to Istio. I don't know why.
So those should probably be upstreams though, right?
Oh, yes. That was actually like or Venil wrote that thing. It was for multi-cluster thing because upstream did not want it, so we only added the core features in Envoy to enable this feature, and then added the filter locally here. And otherwise,
Is that should that move into filter chain match? Sure.
No, so this was, this filter is effectively like rewriting the, this filter is effectively setting the cluster name based on the SNI value for the multi-cluster thing.
Okay,
so
that should be implementable with WebAssembly, right? Or the null sandbox.
We don't have the APIs right now, but that's on the to-do list.
But
when we do upstream selection,
even with the sandbox, with what language though? Is it more like the idea is that we would do this with same C++? That would basically mean putting it back into Istio proxy, right?
Yes, but it's not part of the binary then, right? Like if it's like Istio extensions will still be in Istio proxy, but they will be delivered at WebAssembly. Vanilla Envoy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That is
so the first step is to port them to null sandbox, right?
Correct. Because this is the same API. Basically, we just compile the same extension as different target. So it's exactly the same code, and we just have option to compile it as either WebAssembly module or as the native extension.
So I think Venil is on the call. Venil, would you be able to? This was your work, right? That SNI filter thing.
Yeah, sure. So let me know what is to be done and the new APIs and stuff.
Okay. Thanks.
Also, Jan's filter on ARPN worldwide is also considered as not appropriated for upstream, so probably we should also migrate that to WASM as well.
Okay.
Okay, Piotr, can you create a tracking list?
Yes.
Yeah.
I started drafting this today, but didn't finish the issue.
Okay. I mean, obviously, we should see if we can find a way to upstream things that are relatively generic. Right. So obviously, the SNI stuff and the ALPN stuff, we should take a look at and see if there's a way to reach some compromise with upstream.
Yeah, I agree. Anything that's generic should be upstream.
Okay.
But at the same time, like once we have rich enough WebAssembly API, we can do a lot of this internally, right?
Right.
And we also, at some point, we want to move significant portion of the business logic, so anything other than bit shifting, to WebAssembly, so that we can basically hot patch it at the time, right, without making releases.
Yeah. I mean, it's just going to take a little time to work through that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on the agenda, or should we call it?
If there's nothing on the agenda, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Anil. I work for Red Hat. And yeah, I'm kind of attending the last 1 and 2 meetings, just so this time I want to introduce so that people don't wonder who is this guy listening in. So I'm planning to contribute to Istio and basically looking at federation and the networking aspect of it. My experience is mostly in the networking, mostly in SDN from last 10 years. So working through multiple, from device level to the control plane and a wide variety of that. So looking forward to working with you closely, hopefully once I settle in and warm up toward the code. So hopefully, hoping to have a more interaction.
Nice, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.